when I left my corporate job that I was doing medical device sales. I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning and getting into, the OR before my kids were even awake. They were babies at the time. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to go start my own business so I can have freedom and flexibility. And it'll be so much easier than having to do this, and then you do it. And I love to say I've learned everything I never wanted to know. I never knew I wanted to know any of the things that I have learned by becoming an entrepreneur and a business owner. Finances and operations and sales and marketing and personnel and you name it. None of those, when you have a corporate job, you go get trained, you do that job. When you own a business, you are every single role at some point in the lifetime of that business, or else you wouldn't be in the seat that you are.
Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to Season 4 of Legacy's Journey, where we talk about creating what outlives you. I'm your host, Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Consulting, where we focus on strategic financial growth for marketing agencies so that they can live the dream life they deserve and not be a slave to their business. And we do that through CFO services, accounting, and consulting. Now, this is Season 4. Where we focus on companies who have either bought, sold, they're scaling, or they're excelling at a really high level. And thankfully, I've been in the game for a minute now, so I get to meet cool people that are doing stuff I didn't even know was a business or that you would never even think about, and they're doing it at a high level. And this person, I remember when I met them last February, I believe it was in Austin. And they were one of the first people I met. They were just so nice. She was like, come sit with us for dinner. So I was like, okay, cool. We talked, and every single time since, I don't even think she's aware. She was one of the reasons I joined the group that we're both a part of, just because she was like, yo, join. She introduced me to other people. She was so nice. And then when I figured out what she does, so that's why I was like, we got to get you on here. So, ladies and gentlemen, Jordan is in the building. What's going on, ma'am?
Man, thank you for having me. And no, I didn't know that. So honored to hear that. That's amazing. Love that.
Yeah, you need some extra commission just off that part right there. Okay, so everybody does not know who you are. So tell them name of the company, and what you guys do.
Yeah, so my name is Jordan Cobb, and I am the co-founder and CEO of iVitamin. And iVitamin is an IV hydration lounge located in Austin, Texas. And we have 2 brick-and-mortar locations. We have a 3rd location that just does events, corporate wellness, and mobile. And then we just opened our first franchise location last year. And what we do is help high performers and anyone on their path of life feel better by getting the recommended vitamins and nutrients that we're all deficient in some way, shape, or form, so they can still feel their best and live life like it's meant to be lived, which is well.
Okay. All right. So let's go into that. So first and foremost, people are probably like, oh, wow, 2 locations with a 3rd that's mobile. Walk us through that, because I think at some point, most people, after they probably crack the 7-figure mark, ooh, how can I replicate this? Can I create a second location or a second version? Talk us through like the good, and now that you've done it, like, ooh, this is definitely the bad. Don't do it this way.
Well, I think people wanted us to scale earlier on than we agreed with. I mean, before we were even in the business, we were the first brick and mortar IV hydration lounge to open in Austin. So there was no blueprint. We created it. It's not like a med spa where there were, many of those to kind of emulate. And so when we started this first one, we did not feel comfortable scaling until we had proven it out. And that meant systems and people and operations and sales and marketing and all of those necessary components to having a successful business. So what we did was we actually, about 5 years after we opened this first location, we know, if you're familiar with IV therapy, you know that there's a lot of mobile IV companies out there. Well, it's because there's just not as much of a lift, obviously, as there is anytime you do a brick and mortar. And so what we created after 5 years of having our satellite location, which is downtown on South Congress in Austin, is a fractional franchise. So it's a business in a box, and it's a bolt-on model. And so it's taking our iVitamin concept and processes and the whole turnkey solution system, and plugging it into another already existing business. So it immediately removes the burden of having to find a lease space, having to have the capital of a traditional franchise. The startup time, you can plug one of these into an existing location in 60 days or less. And the startup capital, like I mentioned, is a lot lower. Well, before we could do that, we had to open a second location to be able to prove that we could run not just one location, but two. And so that's when we opened our North location. And this was several years ago. And now, after proving that out and the systems and the scalability of having that second location, is when we were able to launch the franchise. So we opened our first franchise location last year. And I mean, the question of what would we do differently? I don't necessarily think we would do anything differently. I think, with anything, some of our struggles and challenges last year, it's like starting a new business. So we know brick and mortar, but they're starting a new business, so to speak. And so just finding out the sales process and finding the right people that this is a right match for and a right match for us on our end has probably been the most challenging thing of launching that this last year.
Okay, so by the way, y'all know what I always say. These people that we bring on here are super intelligent. Notice how she just so eloquently talked about a franchise versus a second location. So kind of walk us through from a culture standpoint, because it's one thing when I'm there in the building every day. Now I'm having to do a second location that's supposed to be just like ours, just as good, but I'm not going to be able to be there every day. So what is like the culture component coming into place? Like, how do you start to find people that can be you that's not you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I co-founded the business with Jana, who, as you know, from the mastermind, is my best friend from college. She's also a Texas licensed pharmacist, so she's the clinical side behind the business, and I'm the business non-clinical side of the business. So I think having that structure in place, ultimately, we've always said that together we make a whole person. And so I think the answer for us was having the right team in place and having processes in place. Because if you trust the team that you have in place and their leadership and their skill set, and then you have the right processes in place, you shouldn't have to be there. That ultimately is the best testament of having a successful business, is being able to remove yourself from the business and not having yourself in it and still being successful. So
Okay.
culturally, when we open the franchise, I think that that's part of what has made it successful. And that second location is just having the right team.
Okay. The right team. All right. Now talk us through that, because it's one thing to be at home, be virtual, or just even in doing mobile, we're only showing up at certain spurts, versus what are some of the best characteristics or qualities you found led to you finding A players?
Such a good question. And I think it's such a challenging thing for every business owner that we all face. And I think even when you think you hire an A player and it doesn't necessarily work out, there's so many lessons within that, right? Like, of just, where was your energetic state when you were attracting that person? What did your business need versus what you may have thought you needed? And it's all part of the journey. So I think attracting A players, because I've done both, right? Like I've also made the mistakes along the way. And what has been kind of a game changer for us is taking our time and not operating out of place of scarcity, necessity, ready to fill the spot because you've got the spot open and you're ready to grow and scale. And, as a CEO, that's the next step, is the vision and outlaying that. But if we don't take a step back and really take our time, it's harder to find those A players, because we're acting out of an operating space of not the powerful things that we need to attract the right person. Obviously, having something else that's been very helpful for us is having this, anybody that we bring on into the organization meet the entire team, the leadership team. And so, having that pre-screening process, and something that we've implemented recently too is asking for kind of bigger things during the interview process. We learned this through a recruiting firm that we hired, which was Spyglass Operations, and they would put questions that would help you understand the complex thinking that somebody would have to go to solve problems within your business. And so we've started asking those in the application process. To even be considered to move forward, you have to answer questions and record yourself doing a loom of how you would answer or solve certain problems to get you to the next step. And so that's been a nice disqualifier for us, because those that are serious are obviously, going to take the time to answer those questions and move forward. So I think it's kind of the combination of all those things.
Okay, that's a good one. All right, now we got 2 locations. Now we're going into franchise, because one is I own both. You do it the exact way, versus franchise runs a little different. So first, clarify that for the people so we're all talking to the same part. And then tell us what have been some of those challenges that you were ready to handle versus the ones you weren't quite aware that popped up.
Yeah, it's a good question. We have learned a lot, just like with any business. And like I said, having your own and being the brick and mortar, that means that you're hiring the team, you're managing the team, the processes, you're in the daily, that your managers are keeping people accountable. Well, when it's not your location, it's a totally different ballgame, right? So you've got to have those quality assurance checks in place. I think one of the benefits that we're able to offer these franchisees is just having that level of support. So we have an amazing clinical educator that works hands-on with these, with the franchisee and their team, because we're doing a medical procedure, and our number one value for the company is exceptional safety. And so in order to be able to do that and trust that another business owner is going to have our brand, our systems, and our operational capacity in their location, it was really important to have that level of oversight. So we have regular meetings for the non-clinical side of the business and the clinical. We have regular coaching sessions. We have a whole bank of a learning system, an online learning system that they can log in at any time. All of the information is pushed out to them as we have changes. They go through those changes. It's a little bit different, right? We're not a traditional franchise. So what that means is we're a fractional franchise. We're a bolt-on model. So we're dropping iVitamins into already existing businesses like med spas. This is a wellness practice. They have cryo and red light and cold sculpting and things like that, body sculpting services. And so they've now put an iVitamin in there, which opens up an additional stream of revenue. Their nurse and their team member that's already doing these other services can now add IV therapy, some of our elite services like NAD and peptides and things like that. And so it's been, that I think has helped streamline and keep our processes in place. It's just that constant touch point and communication and feedback loop that's helped them stay up to the iVitamin standards.
Makes sense. Finding good partners that are already in the health space, so it's more of a compliment versus just a straight up from scratch. Okay, let's keep going with this then. So you talked about your partner, and I've talked to a couple of people about this recently. Talk to us about A, finding the right partner, and B, how you guys work together, because I've seen, of course, when you're dealing with the accounting and books, we've seen where some partners, great, they just keep it rocking. You see some where eventually something happens, something comes up, and it blows up some kind of way. So kind of talk us through what that looks like in A, how to find a good one, and B, what does it look like to work together on a day-to-day basis?
It's a loaded question right there, right? I mean, everybody that has been in business or owns a business has come in, has faced this challenge, partnerships. Even those that have done it themselves have faced it in some way, shape, or form. And honestly, I don't think that Jana and I, who's my business partner, I don't think we realized how fortunate we are in the relationship that we have until recently, when it was pointed out to actually a lot of members at Four Rooms and just other entrepreneurs that it's very rare to have a long-standing friendship and partnership. So to answer your question, when we started this business, it wasn't just the two of us. We started with two other partners that quickly, it was not the best fit for them or the business. And so we parted ways. So we have experience with both, the partnerships that seemed like they had a solid foundation to start, and things change. And a lot of times when things change, it's life, I mean, you can't really expect big life changes to happen or people to enter into a partnership or a business engagement and have plans that it's going to go south. Everybody comes in with high hopes, right? So what changes having that initial optimistic attitude and then what reality ends up being? Well, it's hard, and when you're faced with challenges and stress and all of the things that come, especially when you're starting the business, you've got to have the same work ethic as that person. And I think there's got to be some personality traits that align. Luckily, Jana and I are kind of the yin and the yang, where I'm moving, at a different pace than her. We complement each other. And so we stay consistent, we stay balanced. I think what else has been really helpful for the two of us, we're really grateful because, like I mentioned, we've been best friends since college, since we were 19 years old. So it's rare that the business partnership would be as successful as the friendship, but both are.
Shout out your college, by the way. Shout out your college.
Texas State University in San Marcos. And so for us, we had parallel lives, and that was tremendous help. Meaning, we had young kids when we started the business. I had a 1 and 2-year-old. She had a brand new baby. And so we could relate for the personal, the life. It wasn't as if, I didn't have kids and I didn't understand how she had to focus on both things. And so having that similarity was really important. And then just the work ethic, both of us tend to take the stress load just in stride. And we also give each other grace as we're going through periods where maybe it's harder for the other person at different times in their life or their career or their home life. And so honestly, it's actually been a compliment for us to be partners throughout the journey rather than a conflict. And we're just grateful. Like, we travel together and our kids are best friends. And then we come together in this business. And it's really kind of funny because sometimes we'll get to Friday at the end of the week and we haven't said anything about anything personal to each other because it's been nothing but business all week. But then the weekend comes around, it's my best friend again. So it's pretty cool.
Okay. All right. So now I like that transition there. So just in case y'all didn't catch it, same work ethic, similar personality traits. It can't be that we're going in opposite directions because we just will work too much and it won't work. All right, now talk about that because that's another reason why I thought you'd be a great guest. I've seen you talk about like, hey, we went somewhere for 30 days and we enjoyed it. So what has that been like? Because it's not just we're growing little small company, we only make 6 figures. Like, no, we're doing this at a high level. We now have a second location. We still got the mobile part and now we got the franchise. How are you still making time to still be in love with Bay and give the kids time and all of these things?
I think in one word, it comes down to mindset. I think for me, it was a non-negotiable. If I'm going to do this, I know what is most important, and that remains the foundation still today. My husband, I've been with him for 27 years. We're about to celebrate our 19th wedding anniversary. We have an 11 and 12-year-old, and they were 1 and 2 when we started the business. From an early age, my dad taught me that I can have anything that I believe I should receive and to dream big. And so there was no if or this, it was and. And so how do we make that work? And I think one of the most important things is knowing your worth and your value. And that is part of mine. My quality of life is, and my foundation, that being the most important thing was never a negotiable. But I think you have to communicate that because people will take advantage of that. They will expect, especially as a woman, that you should be doing something different, whether it's in the home or in the work or, whatever. Being very confident in that is your non-negotiable, communicating that, and then not allowing anyone to change your mind. I grew up, one of 5 kids, and we didn't have anything. We didn't take trips. We didn't travel. We didn't do anything like that. We just didn't have the means or ability to do that. And so I decided at an early age when I got older and had my own career that would be one thing that is important to me that we would do. And so it's just creating it. Nobody's going to create it for you. We've all got the same hours in the day. We've all got the same days of the week. So you decide. I mean, ultimately, it becomes a decision. Well, that decision starts with mindset. Do you believe you should receive it? Is that even what you really want? I think a lot of people don't even know what they want. And so I knew what I wanted. And then I absolutely knew I was not going to apologize for wanting that and having that, because I had known from a very early age that I would have that one day. And then you just put the pieces together, right? So we never started the business as an owner operator business. We always started the business knowing that our quality of life and our families came first and the business came next. And so having the right team in place in order to allow us to live our lives with the work ethic that we both are confident in one another that we have. So while we're not physically present, we are driving the business forward, has allowed us to be able to create that space for one another. And travel, I mean, that's something that I mean, as entrepreneurs, we don't ever turn it off. Like at night, during the week, on the weekends, we're always going. So when I do turn it off on a trip, which is rare, like I don't apologize. I know it's being taken care of. And I do both. Like when we take 30 days in the summer and we started doing this actually during COVID, and we went to Costa Rica and we lived for 30 days. We brought my mom. So it's a little different situation. Like we're very fortunate to have somebody come with us.
Shout out to mom.
Yeah. And so she would work, she would keep the kids while we had calls scheduled. And then we lived this different life that we wouldn't have been able to otherwise do if it wasn't a decided choice between me and my husband that we were going to do it. And we've done it every year since. And it has been the biggest blessing, especially as our kids have gotten older, because it creates this intentional time that the social life is not there. The other things that, are in Austin that we have to do, both just all of the things for work and events and all of these things, they just are blocked out, and it's working during these hours and the family time during the rest. And it's something that we're going to continue doing because it's just been precious to us.
Okay, now see, you just said something else that was some gold. We got to have the right team so that when I take my 30 days, nothing's falling. Yeah, I may take a couple of calls with y'all. You only got me these 2 or 3 hours and that's it. Talk us through what it was like to get to that point, because I'm sure everybody wants to take a 30-day vacay, but we know that everybody's business or systems aren't quite there. So kind of walk us through, like, what did it take to get there? Or were you one of those, I'm just going to go for it, and then I just kept making modifications after?
Yeah, it was definitely a buildup. It was probably, we continued to travel once we opened the business, but we're working throughout it and didn't do the month long where we worked abroad until probably about 5 years after we started the business. But even that was just figuring out the how to. You can live anywhere now with working remote if, you have that constant touch point too. And so that for us is establishing that cadence with the teams that allowed them to feel confident in their roles. We had checks and balances in place. So if things escalated with them, we were always an open door policy. It's not as though they could not get a hold of us, but usually the systems that we had in place helped streamline those processes, those requests, those challenges, and having aligned goals to work on through the quarter and then through the year also helped everybody have clarity around what they're working towards and what that goal is. So whether you're there or not, your presence is felt.
Makes sense. Okay. Now let's stay in the family vein, because again, you're a mom, which I know has its own things. Like, yeah, babe's working, that's cool, but like, I'm still mom. The kids gonna still come to me for everything and ignore dad and all these things. How are you making sure, like, when you're not traveling, to be intentional with the kids on like a weekly basis?
Yeah, I mean, and being intentional with all of it is so crucial and important. I mean, that was my word a few years ago, because being an entrepreneur, there's some, especially in the early phases, those first couple years where you're just vacant. You're having conversations with people and you're not even there because your mind is just so consumed with everything else that you have to do. So there will be peaks and valleys. I mean, that's what ultimately is the reality of the situation. So how do you make sure that you keep that constant intention when during those peaks and valleys? And for us, I mean, it's evolved over the years. You know, when they were little, it was leaving the phone behind, getting out into nature, going and doing things that just were with them. And then when they're in school, some of my goals that I have is to do a monthly date day with each of my children. And just, they're 20 months apart. So we do a lot, like we're a really tight knit family. And so we do almost everything together. But it's really important to kind of carve out that space, especially as they're getting into like the preteen age, of having that one-on-one dedicated time with just me and my son, or me and my daughter. So that has been really helpful. Another goal that we have is we sit down to dinner at least 3 times a week, with sports and stuff. I mean, that's a challenge in itself, but just having that time and talking about our highs and our lows from the day and bringing up things that were challenging has been super helpful. And then for my husband and I, this was, when I got into my early 40s, and I know a lot of other women can relate to this, you start over functioning. So you start doing the household and doing everything for the kids and becoming this crazy perfectionist persona. And what it does is it leaves you pissed and resentful and depleted. And until you're like, holy shit, and you look around and you're like, well, I created this. I said, I'll do it. I'll take that. I'm going to do it better than you. You're not going to do it like me. Let me do it. I know the passwords. I know the schedule. Well, what it does is it puts you on an island by yourself. And then you feel the weight of those responsibilities. And so this was a, process for me to work through. And I actually, and talking through this, what we did was we started having a family weekly meeting with my husband and we have lists now. I started putting stuff on his list. And when I put something on his list, it means that he's going to run with it. He's going to go with it. And it's not, it's not in my control anymore, which is something that, is a process for me to let go. But it has been super helpful. If we go a week without our family meeting, things go awry. I start over functioning again, and it's not like he's not capable. I married a strong, highly successful, type A personality, and it was me showing up and putting that responsibility on myself. So backing up, that's been a huge help for both of us. And then travel, like even when we are on vacation, talk about intentional time, nobody else is around, even on the flight or even on the car ride, you're having those conversations with your kids, and the space is more special and meaningful when there's not all the other interactions and distractions that we have on a day-to-day basis. So that's why we prioritize it.
All right, we got weekly dates in there. That's a good one. I'm gonna have to steal that one. I don't have a weekly. We just do weekly pancakes.
Oh.
I'm gonna steal that one. All right, now you talked about a little bit. Now we talked about the kids and keeping that balance. Now let's bring it to you and Bay. Okay, so we got weekly dates with the kids. How is you and Bay? Like, is there a special show y'all watch? Is it we go out and do keep us? And the reason I'm asking this question is because I think all of us, like you said, that are wired to be owners, is always go. Like you said, we can't turn it off. But then it's like, oh crap, let me slow down. Or how do I incorporate? How do I show this person I still love and care? I'm just trying to make these moves. So with it being Bay, and you said how many years? 27 years, you said?
27.
So he knows you. You know him. I love you, but I still got to show you. Like, what does that look like? Is it weekly dates, or what do you guys do?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I meet so many entrepreneurs, I'm sure you do too, that have built the empire, built the business, and then at what sacrifice and what's left. And I just hear these stories, and I didn't even realize I wasn't doing it that way until now. I've been building this business for the last 10 years and realizing that those priorities that I had from the very beginning is what has accomplish this full life with my husband and my kids and the business. And so for us, it depends on what makes you tick, right? Like for us, it's quality time. And when we had kids, the kids did not come in and run the show. It was us before them. And so having that foundation has been everything. And I think so many people lose themselves, especially women, as they have kids. Their identity just starts to melt away. They're over functioning, like we were talking about, and doing all these things. And for us, luckily, that was one thing. We had my older brother and sister-in-law. They had the relationship with the foundation was very strong, and so we looked at people that had what we wanted and a relationship, and then we worked towards those things. How did you do this? What were you doing? Like, how did you stay strong? And started implementing those things. And what that looks like for us is we call it a party of two. It's just the two of us, whether that's going on the boat or walking down to the dock and going for a surf sesh. It doesn't even have to be out. It can be whatever, but just a party of two. We have a big social scene here in Austin, and we have a great tribe of friends, but it's also important to just do the two of you. And so prioritizing that and doing that at least once a month, and then once a week at the family meetings, like I said, we'll go and get out of the house. We'll bring our computers. We'll go grab a bite or a drink and sit there together and kind of hack through that list of the family stuff while also catching up with each other, because there's so much going on at all times. And if you don't, it'll slip away. And then just travel. When you're talking about being intentional, I'm intentional about my travel. Like I have a trip that I do with all of our friends. We have a trip that we do with just the two of us, even if it's for 3 nights. Like I talk to a lot of couples. I'm like, when's the last time you took a trip with just your person? And a lot of them, some of them, it's been 5 years, it's been 10 years, never since the kids came. We were doing that and we were fortunate because we had help, right? My mom, who lives with us now, she has always been with the kids since they were young. And so we had help, but we never stopped that. We continued to take those trips that were just the two of us, even after the kids came, and we prioritize one another. And I think it shows with the kids. And so they fall in line, and there's that level of respect that starts with us as that foundation.
That's a good one. Okay. Switching gears a little bit. So back on the business side, because we talked through like good partners, what does that look like, how to mesh that. Now we talked about family, making sure we don't get out of balance and out of whack there. Let's go back to the business side. I like to ask this question because you always see the successful people always have great answers to these. So what is one money lesson that you had to learn the hard way that you wish somebody would have told you earlier?
Good one. For us, our money, the money lessons never stop, right? But a big one that was pretty painful was early on. And we gave up a percentage based off of a transactional role within the company. So we gave up a percentage for marketing early on in the company when we didn't have that skill set. We were relying on somebody else to bring in that skill set. Ended up being a very costly mistake because essentially they were partners. They had equity, and we had to buy them out. And so the value did not equate to what we had given, but we also didn't have that business acumen at that, or the lessons that we know now because of that experience happening, to understand the weight of what we were doing. And so it was an expensive lesson. And I think, when you think, Jan and I bootstrap iVitamin, we've not brought on any investors. We've self-funded the entire business. And so I think the reason that we've continued down that path is because of those early on experiences. So while it was a tough lesson to learn, I'm glad it happened early on and not later in the game where it could have been much, much more impactful.
Yep. Okay. What's something you learned or believed about business early on that you've had to like completely just unlearn? Like, I don't know why I thought this, but this is not.
Well, it's a hilarious question because when I left my corporate job that I was doing medical device sales, I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning and getting into, the OR before my kids were even awake. They were babies at the time. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to go start my own business so I can have freedom and flexibility. And it'll be so much easier than having to do this, and then you do it. And I love to say I've learned everything I never wanted to know. I never knew I wanted to know any of the things that I have learned by becoming an entrepreneur and a business owner. Finances and operations and sales and marketing and personnel and you name it. None of those, when you have a corporate job, you go get trained, you do that job. When you own a business, you are every single role at some point in the lifetime of that business, or else you wouldn't be in the seat that you are.
That's facts. That's facts. I totally agree. All right. Let's say it's 12 months from now. What is one big win you'd love to be celebrating this time next year?
That's a good one. That's a great question. So we have an exciting partnership that we're working on. We're working with a suite space. If you're familiar with a suite space, it's where they have service providers all housed into one commercial location. And so we are about to start our first pilot in a suite space where we bring iVitamin to these businesses. So I would love to be in the situation next year where we have 5 of those locations opened and are thriving, successful locations in a novice new model, because it's not been done before in the space that we're in. And so we'd be taking our fractional franchise bolt-on model and then putting that system into suite spaces throughout the country.
That's a good one. More expansion. Okay. All right. And then we'll end with this question. If you could go back in time and like everything you know right now this second, and you get in a time machine and you got 30 seconds to go back to 18 or 22-year-old Jordan, what are you telling?
That one's a deep one. I think to learn to trust earlier.
Trust who?
Trust yourself earlier. I think at 18 or 22, either of them still very similar. So much of being an entrepreneur is built on the faith that you have the ability and you have everything you need to succeed. But what deviates our path is our fear. So when fear trumps that faith and we stop trusting, then we start making decisions that are not the decisions that we were on the faithful path of making. Yeah. And so I think if I could say anything to that self, it would be to trust your intuition, know that you're on the right path. And if you're feeling that way, then you need to get realigned and trust in that to continue on that faith path.
Go. Okay. Well, y'all, I told y'all from the jump, she was going to give you a lot of good jewels. And she said them so nice and like smooth with it. Just in reviewing, just in case you weren't paying attention, here's your Cliff Notes version. So, 2 locations, has a third, working on a third. We got the franchise deal. We got the mobile piece added in. What is it like to manage a second location? And even in trying to get the franchise model going, you still are going to come back to some type of version of having the right culture, the right standards, the right team, and the right people. That's the only way that you can grow and scale it without just spending all your time, because to her point, she still wants to have the intentional time with the kids, still have the intentional time with Bay. And we can't do that if we don't have the right people in place. So how do you hire these people that you can trust, these A players? Yes, go through the norm, but also put some deep, challenging questions to disqualify. It's not always about pre-qualifying and making sure you're the right fit, but I also want to disqualify the wrong person to give myself the best chance for my investment to go correctly. She also talked about having, in regards to partners, how there were some, but they weren't aligned. So, what does it look like to have similar traits, a similar belief system, a similar work ethic? So that way everybody's going in the same direction versus we're all kind of doing our own thing and hoping that it works. You can be a friend with your partner. And mostly always focus on the fact that you can create whatever you want. If you want that family time, you can create it. It's going to be a little hard. Got to maintain. Got to get it in that calendar some kind of way. But it's something that you definitely can do. And putting Bay before the kids may just be the key that y'all didn't know you needed to focus on. And that's pretty much it. So, with that being said, if you are, tell the people. So, if they are in Austin or really, really close to Austin, Texas, name of company, and how they can get in contact with you.
The name of the company is iVitamin. iVitaminTherapy.com is the website. And we can bring services to you, or you can come into one of our locations, and we're happy to turn your day back around with some wellness.
And for the record, now y'all know, you may not know, I'm scared of needles, so I didn't do it because I'm very, very scared of needles. But I have seen her do this probably 5 or 6 times now, and every single time the people get done, they're like, I feel great. I feel amazing. I should have tried this sooner. Or maybe, they partied hard the day before and they're like, I feel great. Or maybe they've done a lot of travel. So I've seen her do it. Her and her team, they're all very nice. I'm sure they would stick you very, very nicely. I'm not going to get stick because I hate needles. It's an irrational fear, but I just hate them.
You're missing out, Aaron.
I'm not saying I'm not missing out. I'm just saying I hate needles. But I've seen everybody who's tried her service. They've all been happy, very excited about it. Every time they see her, they're like, I'm ready for my stuff. So guys, if you're in the Austin, Texas area or close enough, Texas is huge. So like even out by an hour, figure out a way to try to get there and just get that experience for yourself, especially if you're a high performing executive or business owner, because we know what's the first thing that we do? We put all our focus into the business, and our health is always the first thing that suffers. So this can be a way to give back to yourself and to your body so that you can continue to perform at a high level and still show up for your family. So Jordan, as always, thank you so much for giving us your time. It was great to catch up. Guys, these are the people that we're bringing on in season 4. These are the types of people that are showing you based on their story. Hey, yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, you can keep that balance with family, and yes, you can do it the right way. So we're going to be committed to continuing to bring you guys the best people and the best stories that we can to encourage you and show you different ways to still get there. So with that being said, you guys take care of yourself. Make sure you like this, share this with another mom, another lady that's killing it in business so that she can go like, oh my gosh, there is a better way. Here, she just gave you the blueprint. She got 2 locations, plus a mobile, plus franchise, plus she about to move to some more. She just told you. So listen to what she's saying. And of course, I'm sure, reach out to her on socials, like pick her brain, follow her, see their journey as they grow so you can continue to be inspired. So with that being said, guys, until the next episode, we'll see you later. Peace.